I press my back against the cold tiles, heart hammering so loud I'm sure he can hear it in the next room. The shower in the tiny bathroom is running, hot water drowning out every other sound, a lousy comfort, that dull roar. Behind the locked wooden door, Connor's voice calls out, trembling. Natalie? You in there? Please, baby, talk to me. Each syllable is laced with panic and desperation. It feels like he knows I'm here. Or at least that I'm listening. At 30 years old, I never imagined my marriage would feel like this, a hostage scene in my own home. My hands are clutching the phone as I tap Connor's name to call him back. 27 missed calls in 1 hour. 27 frantic, pleading attempts to reach me. I swallow hard, steadying my breathing as I plunge the phone to my ear. Hello. I keep my voice cool, strained, the shower's roar covering my quivering tone. Nat. His voice cracks. It's soft now, borderline begging. Why didn't you pick up? I was scared. Are you okay? Are we okay? He sounds so genuine I almost believe it for a second, until my brain reminds me that the man on the other side of this door is a stranger who thinks he can treat me like this. But I have to play it cool. I clear my throat. I'm here. Everything's fine. I'm just tying up loose ends at work. My words feel hollow even to my own ears. He sucks in a breath. I picture his eyes, brown, anxious. You sound different, he whispers. You've been distant since you got back. You don't seem happy. Did something happen with your dad or at work? I tilt the phone so his voice is muffled by porcelain and tile. He doesn't need to know half the truth. Nothing's wrong. Really. Just jet lag maybe. I exhale quietly. Lie. But what can I say? What I heard last week would sound insane coming from me. So instead I pat the cold sink edge with my fingertips and smile at my reflection in the mirror, though no one can see me. I love you, Connor. Just tired, that's all. I love you too, he chokes out. There's a long silence on the line, heavy and suffocating. I want to weep right here on the damn floor. When I finally break it, I sound hopeless even to myself. All good, okay? I say quietly, more to prove it than convince him. Okay, he breathes. Okay, I love you. I love you. I end the call, though something in the silence afterward tells me he doesn't believe me. My eyes sting with tears. I kick my heels into the floor, unwilling to cry. Not again. It's too much. A memory drifts into focus, as vivid as the steam on the mirror. 5 days earlier, I'd been certain my life was about to take a turn for the better. It was a week ago that I boarded the red-eye back from Nashville, excitement fluttering in my chest. I had begged my girlfriends to end our trip a day early. Already on a high from the sparkly rooftop bars and spa pampering that Nashville had given us, the last thing any of us wanted was to cut it short. But fate played her card. Scarlett got violently sick from some sketchy chicken. Tina got an emergency call from home, leaving me and Loretta stranded. With the trip falling apart, I saw an opportunity. I booked the earliest flight out that night, my mind racing with a plan that felt half hopeful, half hypnosis. Surprise Connor. Connor. My husband of 3 years, my best friend, or so I once thought. The man who had told me, with tears rolling down his cheeks, that I was the best thing that ever happened to him. We had just renewed our vows last weekend, surrounded by our closest family and friends. I still remembered how he trembled reading his pledge under the twinkling lights, calling me his best decision, his Natalie, and I almost believed him. The old me had believed it, at least until 3 days ago. Now, as I made my way through the airport terminal, picking up my carry-on, I could barely contain my smile. I even let myself think about the moment I'd catch him off guard. He was always dropping those sulky selfies on our group chat, slouched on the couch with those puppy eyes, texting me from the living room. Wish you were here, one photo had said. He couldn't have known this was the best surprise he'd get in years. The flight was short. I had barely slept, bouncing in my seat at the thought of what was to come. By the time I texted Connor from 35,000 feet that I was landing early, my heartbeat was a rattling drum. Let the surprise begin, I thought with a giddy force that didn't match my pounding chest. I did every little thing to make it perfect. I swung by that hole-in-the-wall taqueria near our house. His favorite nachos are hand-scored into my memory, along with a 6-pack of that craft IPA he can't stop ranting about. No elaborate dinner, just comfort food and brewery hops. He's going to be so happy, I kept telling myself as I unlocked the garage door with our code, stepping into the dim silence of home. The layout of our house meant the kitchen was a world away from the entry. I crept inside, heart in my throat, set the food down on the counter and listened. Above me, the murmur of a male voice floated down from his little loft office. Connor. He sounded lively, leaning back in the chair. Laughing even. But the laughter was laced with cynicism. Marriage is a complete nightmare, bro. I heard him say, casual yet venomous. I froze, 1 foot on the stairs. His next words slashed at me. I wake up every day regretting my decision. My stomach churned so violently I nearly dropped the chips I was holding. Just before I registered what was happening, I was moving up the stairs, out of my shoes, every instinct screaming to run away from the phone in his hand. Yes, Connor continued, the phone's mic carried every painful syllable straight to me. If it wasn't for her family's money, I'd be gone already. A high, mocking laugh bubbled up from him, then faded. I listened, shaking. The oven light bloomed below me. This was murder. I stood in the corner, ankles crossed on the step, body frozen in place. He made fun of our vow renewal too. Vow renewal was torture, he whispered loudly, loud enough for the kids in the video game room to glare. I had to put on this big romantic act, while her family sat there sniffing and beaming like we were in a movie. It was worse than I could have imagined. The Connor who'd whispered sweet nothings in my ear, who promised me our future over candlelight, this Connor on the phone was bitter and cold. He admitted he saw me as the money wife. He chuckled, sneered, it's a small price to pay for comfort. Oh, and get this, he said with a hollow, triumphant pride in his tone. Her old man says he'll bring me into the business next year once I'm established. Then I'll have options. Actual options. My chest seized. Meal ticket, he uttered softly, feigning contentment, as if the label pleased him. Somewhere deep inside, something shattered. I turned and silently descended, retreated back downstairs, and all I managed was setting the beer and nachos gently on the island. The lime green napkins still had a slight smell of fresh citrus, the same ones I'd cut corners on to grab the cheap beer, and they fluttered in the breeze I didn't notice I was creating. At the bottom of the stairs, I told myself to get a grip, tried to reason that maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe it was out of context. Or maybe I'd stormed up here, thrown a fit over nothing, and this was how he felt? No, I couldn't believe that. It was too blatant. I backed out of the house the way I'd come, closing the garage door with trembling hands. Connor never saw me slip away. My car was parked a block down, morning sun warm on the windshield. I sat there for 2 hours, head on the steering wheel sobbing. My favorite Eichedau smeared the red cloth seats. An old lady walked by at one point and knocked softly. Are you okay, honey? She asked, giving me a concerned once-over. I blinked back tears and managed a weak smile. My dog died. I lied quietly. Sorry. Just got a little wrecked thinking about it. She nodded as if that made sense, patted my arm like I was an old friend, and walked on. That was my first lie of many in the last 24 hours. When I finally peeled myself out of the car, the bags of nachos and beer still in the back, I felt completely empty. I texted the restaurant. Sorry, Connor isn't feeling well. It's okay, dear, came the puzzled reply. Take care of him. I was so distant and sobbing that day. No lie could be stranger than the truth. I booked a hotel near the airport with the nachos still warm in my lap. I opened the beer outside in the parking lot. The cool bubbles seemed like they might drown my anxiety. In the bathroom mirror later, my cheeks were so puffy I barely recognized myself. Every time I blinked, the betrayal stung afresh. Who was I married to? The whole ride home the next morning, on the flight I'd originally planned for days hence, I replayed everything. Connor's face flashed in snapshots. The night we first moved in, him carrying my suitcase and smiling, carefree. The morning he carved my initials with mine into the homemade fruit tart he made for breakfast, the way he picked out a silver heart charm with my birthstone on it. Each memory I loved now felt like part of someone else's story. Were those memories real love, or something he invented? My chest was caving under the weight of doubt. When I finally walked in the front door that Sunday afternoon, I put on my best casual smile and pretended nothing was wrong. I kissed Connor on the cheek, whispered, "Missed you," and then we lingered in that comfortable silence for the first time since I arrived at a normal time. He glanced up from our wedding photo album page I had out to review the guest list with our parents later, actually, and kissed the top of my head. Inside, I was shaking. 5 days of pretending everything's normal. Every night for 5 nights, I had cried myself to sleep in that guest bedroom, staring at the ceiling fan. Today I would sleep next to him again, but I felt like someone else's life. He had no idea what I knew now, wouldn't dare guess. And for now, I was going to keep it that way. I won't lie, that night in bed, I held him so close it hurt, burying my face in his chest, as if I could lick his skin and find where all the lies lived. I wanted to swallow every apology that could have come but never did. He told me he loved me as I drifted off, and I whispered it back, the emptiest words I've ever said. 4 or 5 days after that, I was in a daze. Connor has always been a creature of routine, and so was I. Breakfast coffee by 7 a.m., mirror check of his tie for me, commute to my PR job. But every morning, between pouring the water and waiting for that first sip, I'd stare at our coffee table etched sign, where your story begins. I thought about how our story really began, and where it was going. The arrow of time felt like it had sharp edges now. I replayed every small interaction from the past 3 years. The way he insisted on paying for almost every dinner. Now I saw it with new eyes. He'd only slip my credit card if we were at the cheapest place in town. If I offered to pay down my car loan over time, he'd get defensive, as if offended that I could. He always had grand dreams, a startup, writing a novel, traveling the world, but none of those ever left our couch until my father's firm promised connections. I replayed our fights, our loving moments, our wedding toast, everything, through this jagged prism. At night, after he'd fallen asleep beside me, I'd slip out of the bed and over to the hallway window where I could watch him through the gate. He looked so peaceful, and I felt like I had a gun pointed at him. He didn't know that every hug he gave me, every midnight nuzzle, was now fuel to my fury. I had to make sure he never hurt me, or my family again. It was Loretta who snapped me out of the haze on day 3. We'd planned another trip to Nashville for a spa weekend. Scarlett had recovered and flew off. Tina's emergency was under control, so Loretta was eager. Actually, she could tell I was dragging the trip out. We ended up at a Sunday brunch buffet, and I think I must have replayed this moment thousands of times. Loretta pressed her hand over mine as I picked at my omelet. I know. I nodded, covering up a shudder. Loretta knows me too well. She slid out a napkin and started making little check marks and bullet points. Step 1. Take a breath. Step 2. Figure out who the hell he is. Step 3. Decide what you deserve. She looked up with those fiery eyes. You're not crazy, Nat. You're hurt. And you deserve the truth on the table, not more secrets. Her calm made me feel stronger. Later that day, while Connor was calling me on some nonsense excuse, I took action. I called my personal bank's fraud line from a stall in the restroom. It felt good to tell someone what was going on, even if it was mostly to increase security. I changed all my passwords, added voice recognition, the works. This was my money too. I needed to make sure it stayed mine. Then, slow and steady, I started moving cash from our joint checking account into a secret savings account that Connor didn't have the code for. Just small amounts, a couple of hundred a day. Untraceable. He never noticed the balance wane. I also left clues. On my desk one morning, in plain sight, I left printouts of bank statements showing his withdrawals. After all, if I had to play detective, I might as well lead him down the path too. I'm not proud of this, but the moment he saw those pages, I knew I'd get his reaction. Meanwhile, I deliberately lowered my profile at home. Connor had shown me his true nature. He'd deserve a performance back. If he expected a series of freakouts, I gave him coolness instead. When he would step out of a call looking guilty, I'd pat his arm and smile. It's okay, babe. I'm just a little tired, I'd lie. On day 4, when I got home from work, I surprised him with a casual, "Hi, honey. Anything fun today?" and noticed every awkward twitch in his face. One morning I mentioned to him in passing that Dad had been talking about early retirement, some story I made up that he was worried about the economy and looking to scale back. Immediately Connor sat straight up, genuinely concerned. He was? Is he gonna sell everything and... Connor trailed off, eyes actually lighting up with relief. He mentioned something to me too. More travel, maybe? If he did that, it would affect everything. Are we okay? His tone was hypothetical, but I saw it. His mind was calculating the future without Dad's money in it. I sipped my coffee, batting one eye innocent. I don't know, maybe he'll slow down a bit. Why? Concerned about Granddad's golf games. I teased lightly, gesturing at Dad's golf trophies in the den. Connor chuckled, but sweat beaded at his temples. We changed the subject quickly, but I realized something then. Wherever this was going, it was about money. The subtle revenge had begun to work. Those small sounds at home, the dripping sink, the squeaky bathroom door, the wobbly table leg, that Connor had always been perfectly content to ignore. Suddenly I made sure he saw them. Oh, by the way, the faucet's been dripping upstairs. My apartment had a plumber lined up to fix it. When the maintenance guy showed up unannounced, Connor looked confused. I called them last night when you were out. I lied cheerfully. I know you're busy. He didn't complain when the repairs finished in 10 minutes for $85. Later, the next night, I casually mentioned, the fridge is totally messed up, and by morning that was fixed too. He took a power tool out of the closet like a man possessed and spent 2 hours balancing the old dining table until it didn't wobble. If you had told me a week ago that Connor would single-handedly fix everything I ever wanted done around here, I would have laughed. Now I saw it for what it was, desperation. During all of this, I quietly documented every shred. I screenshots of our account ledger, cataloged random ATM withdrawals, $117,000 in sums labeled business expense and investment. Each time I inquired about it, he'd change the subject. I wrote down every text exchange in my head. One afternoon, while Connor was at the gym pretending to lift dumbbells, I stood in our bedroom and opened his nightstand drawer. There it was, a second phone, cheap and black, the kind you grab at Target and burn your hands on. A sticky note stuck to the back said 1324. My fingers shook as I punched it in. The screen lit up and the only contact saved was D. I unlocked it to see dozens of texts. Your favorite, just got 5 minutes and I needed to hear your voice, baby. A month ago, 2 more years and then I'm yours. We'll laugh at this all from the beach. My grip tightened on the phone. He's planning to ditch me. I spent an hour just scrolling. Every message was about money, counting days, longing. The name Denise clicked in my mind. That was Connor's college ex. I could almost feel the hot red of rage coloring my cheeks. I took photos of everything on the screen, then carefully put the phone back exactly where it was. Later I asked Loretta to look through my face when I described it. She turned ghost white and said, "You have evidence, girl. Solid evidence. I think it's time for some legal advice." By the end of day 4, Connor was clearly a wreck. He'd started watching us closely. He came home early a couple times to surprise me with takeout, something he'd never done, and almost spilled a grilled chicken dinner on me that night when I walked in wearing sweatpants and no makeup. Then he started dreaming out loud about kids, an odd proposal from the man who'd spent 3 years inventing excuses. Sitting across the table from me at dinner, eyes pleading, he said with tears in his own voice, "Natalie, I just realized what I have. How much I love our life. I want to try again, really try. Let's start trying for a baby. Let's really commit to us." I nearly choked on my stir-fry. Inside, I was screaming at myself to grab onto that bait, to drown him in some tearful forgiveness. My old heart actually fluttered. I reached out, took his hand, touching his fingertips. His eyes lit up, relief washing over them. But I only gave him a small smile. "We're all exhausted with work," I murmured. "Maybe we should rest first." "Think about it." His face lost color instantly. He inked away a bit, his hands trembling again. He stammered, "Of course. Whatever you want, baby." He sank back into his chair, defeated. I held my breath that I hadn't said too much. Part of me wanted to smirk at this just once. But I just nodded and picked at my salad, outwardly calm but dying inside because he hadn't asked me if I wanted a child, only asked because he needed to sell an image to my parents. The final act was approaching. I had already reached out to that lawyer Loretta recommended, a woman outside our social circles who laid out my options. She explained that my family's reputation wasn't as bulletproof as I thought. If I could prove Connor married me under false pretenses, call it fraud, and misrepresented finances, the prenup could be invalidated. The law was on my side. Suddenly, for the first time, I wasn't completely helpless. So I planned a meeting, but under the guise of something else. Connor suggested we take one more trip, have another little ceremony for all those who missed the vow renewal. He was digging out photos of a luxe resort in Bali with infinity pools. Immediately I said, "That sounds lovely, but what do you say we have that dinner we talked about at the cabin by the lake first? Once we're back, then we can plan something big." He looked at me like I had 2 heads. "A cabin? But I thought you loved the idea of 5 stars. "I do," I shrugged. "But I thought this one would be special. We didn't get to bring my parents on our last honeymoon. The cabin is my dad's old place by the lake. It's not fancy, but it's meaningful." Connor forced a smile and nodded. Relief flashed through his eyes. "Yeah, that'd be nice. Maybe next year we'd do Bali." That evening, he went out to buy groceries, or at least that's what he told me. I found that curious, but gave a tired shrug. Later, reviewing our accounts, I saw something curious. No Walmart or grocery store charges. Instead, there was a $60 charge at a bar on the opposite side of town, the same night he was supposed to be buying food. He was lying, or at least being secretive again. There were no casual explanations left. I was done placating. The next morning was Friday. Frost was still melting on the porch, and the air smelled like cold wood smoke. Connor had suggested we drive out after lunch, spend the whole weekend at my family's cabin. Just as, he said, like it used to be. My family home was an old farmhouse surrounded by fir trees, somewhere between comfort and a museum of my childhood. My dad was tinkering in the shop, Mom was baking. I hadn't told them about any of this, not yet. Connor, of course, thought this was just a normal family visit. Oh, the irony. At dinner that night, Connor was on his very best behavior. He complimented my mom's new curtains, a beige thrift store find, but he acted awestruck. He asked Dad detailed questions about his golf score. Dad brags about birdies, not holes in one, but Connor acted like it was rocket science. He even volunteered to show Aunt Linda's new baby photos on the family computer, an act of service I had never seen in our entire marriage. My mom cooed over how helpful he was. My stomach twisted, listening to all this act unfold. Between bites of Mom's roast, Connor casually dropped, "I've been looking at some houses out here." Dad's ears perked. "Oh? What kind?" Dad asked, proud that his daughter's husband was apparently thinking of buying. Connor just smiled and said, "Nothing specific. Just considering maybe a small cottage, in this area. Property values are going up soon." Dad's eyes went wide. "They are." He put down his fork. "I've been talking to a friend. If anything, it might raise by 20% in the next 5 years. Connor half snorted, then turned back to me with so much hope in his eyes. All of Dad's talk about real estate, Dad's admiration for him. Apparently, Dad had no idea that Connor's ear was twitching at every word. It was like watching a movie in reverse. Connor recovered quickly, blinking, giving Dad a thumbs up. "Absolutely, sir." Later that night, after conversation lulled, Dad caught me in the kitchen. He placed a hand on my shoulder. "Are you sure you're all right?" he whispered. Concern etched on his face. You've been quiet since dinner. I swallowed. I'm fine, just tired. Dad nodded, eyes traveling down the hallway. He knew something was off. He was my father after all, but he trusted me. We agreed he would call our family's financial advisor to schedule an informal meeting the next morning. He said it was just routine paperwork for estate planning and investments. Perfect. At 10 o'clock the next morning, in Dad's wood-paneled study, the stage was set. I sat opposite my parents, Connor to my right, and Mr. Bradshaw the advisor, a gentle-eyed man, between them. The mood was tight and sterile, almost like a forced negotiation scene. Dad cleared his throat. Connor, thank you for meeting us. Natalie says you have something you want to tell us. His tone was calm, but I could tell he expected a confession. Connor looked around, confusion turning to alarm when he noticed the stack of papers on the table. My audio recording transcript, snippets of bank statements, text messages on glossy paper. I heard Dad slide the folder closer to himself. Connor blanched. He sputtered, at a loss for words. My mother's eyes never left his face. She opened her mouth, then snapped it shut tight. You could feel the air crack with tension. I leaned forward, fingers lightly drumming on the table. I let Dad break the silence. He spread out the documents. We have here, among other things, full transcripts of a phone conversation you had, in your own voice on this date. Also, records of significant withdrawals from the joint accounts, which align with that conversation. Dad looked at Connor with cold certainty. Connor's mouth hung open. He balled his fists under the table. His jaw worked. Mom finally exploded, trembling with rage. You had years, Connor. Years of our trust. And this is what you did. She pointed angrily at a headline from the transcript. Marriage is a nightmare. She's just my meal ticket. Her voice cracked. Meal ticket? Nightmare? We raised you as one of our own. Connor threw his hands up, stammering, No, I didn't mean it like that. It was taken out of Con. Dad cut him off. His voice was icy now. That time you chose to be honest about how you felt, under oath, and on a tape recorder, was one I expect was fully meant. Are we mistaken? Connor's face turned ashen. I was going through a rough patch. A rough patch, my mother shrieked. You called planning your entire future on scheming against her a rough patch? He turned then to me, desperation in his eyes. Natalie, please. You know I love you, it was just... He tried to reach out but Dad's arm shot out and blocked him. Love me? My voice didn't waver, though I could feel thunder in my chest. I met Connor's eyes squarely. You want to know what love is? The room fell silent. Connor was literally trembling on his seat. All those times you held me, and I held you back, all the smiles and tears. Would you call those lies now? He looked like a hunted animal. His tears came then. Real or not, I saw them fall. I do love you. His voice was pleading. I grew to love you. But when I said those things, I was lost. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I felt none of the relief I'd once imagined. I only felt exhausted. He had lied to me for years, and now he was begging me to forget the truth. Dad's chair scraped back. He was done. We're removing you from any involvement in the family business and assets, Connor. His voice was quiet but absolute. You are no longer a beneficiary in any of our accounts or trusts. As of today, you have no entitlement to Dad's company. Connor's face contorted in horror. He turned to me with pleading eyes. Natalie, please. Mom interrupted, venom dripping. Do you really think I'd believe a word out of your mouth now? Oh, the son I thought you were. Connor broke. He knelt at my knees and took my hand. I think that's the worst one can see. A grown man on his knees crying to the woman he scammed, begging. He said, voice cracking, I love you so much. This is our life. This can't just throw away everything over one stupid conversation. I looked down at his tear-streaked face. My heart had hardened. Holding his wrist gently, I answered softly, I'm not the one throwing anything away, Connor. You already did that when you decided I was just a paycheck. He looked up at me with uncomprehending eyes. That's when Dad leaned in. Your belongings will be at the curb by 3 p.m. tomorrow. The lawyer will have divorce papers served on your porch by noon. There was a finality to his words that echoed in my bones. Connor whimpered. My eyes blurred, not from sympathy, but from rage and release. I whispered the toughest part, I'm not ending anything, Connor. You already ended us. And with that, everything changed. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of paperwork and tears and dark coffee. We avoided court by splitting everything with our lawyers, but Connor initially fought. His face was sullen when he asked for half of everything. Even lawyers heaped pity on me then. One of them quietly showed me how the evidence could burn his case, that transcript, the bank logs. They couldn't force me to keep a single penny he'd stolen. Their mouths fell open when he tried to say he contributed significantly to my family's business. A recording of his own voice describing me as nothing but a meal ticket sat firmly on the table. At home, the atmosphere lifted somehow even as I was leaving. 3 nights after the confrontation, Connor came home with dinner and candles, sweatpants, and the everything wine sign on the table. My favorites. He was sweaty, heart-thumping on edge. He was trying again, tears in eyes. Please, just give me one more chance. I know I screwed up. I love you. Let's try to fix this, he pleaded, voice quivering. 2 seconds later, when I mentioned postponing our New York trip of the luxury gift we were planning, his desperation evaporated. The smile dropped from his face like someone snapped their fingers. Turns out, he was more upset about a 5-star weekend being in jeopardy than my well-being. I realized then I was done. I closed my eyes and took a steadying breath. I apologized to him that we had to put the trip on hold. We'd settle everything first. The relief on his face was immediate and shameful. He doesn't know it yet, but by tomorrow morning he'll realize I've known the truth the whole time. The ground has shifted under his feet, and he can't hide it.